Most Americans feel like the system is rigged long before they cast a vote. Today, we're asking whether the real problem isn't left versus right, but how candidates are chosen in the first place. Welcome back to Finding Freedom here on the Lions of Liberty Podcast Network. Great to have you with me for another great show. I'll introduce my guest in just one moment. Before I do, I got to tell you about Fox and Sons coffee. It's my go-to coffee every single morning. You can order it however you prefer it, if it's ground or whole bean and grind it yourself, whatever you want to do. They have espressos, and my favorite bean is from Guatemala that I've been drinking recently, but literally almost any type of coffee you can imagine, owner Stephen Fox at Fox and Sons has to offer there. It's clean coffee, organic, none of those mold toxins you get in your grocery store brands. You can get your own bag by going to foxandsons.com. That's FOXNSONS.com. Get 15% off an order of $40 or more by using promo code JOHN. That is JOHN at checkout. All right, let's bring in my guest for today. And my guest is Tom Joseph. And Tom is the force behind America's Main Street Party. It's a movement built around a moneyless, technology-driven people's primary. It's designed to restore true representation at the House level district. We're going to dive into, how this actually works, this reformed nominating system, and could it actually return power back to the voters? So, Tom, welcome to Finding Freedom.
John, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, great to have you on, Tom. And we were just talking pre-show. We figured out that we're only about probably 15, 20 minutes away from each other right now. We could have done this in person,
right.
but
That's a good coincidence.
That's always funny when that happens. So I don't know if the wind is blowing like crazy where you are, but I'm hearing that in the background. Hopefully it's not disrupting our feed here today. But Tom, America's Main Street Party. So when your people reached out to me a few weeks ago, I was, I got all kinds of different emails from guests reaching out. This one struck me. I'm like, this is interesting. It's different. Not sure if I understand it, but it's definitely hitting on a major problem we have in this country, which is with the politicians, the representatives who are put in front of us. Many of them, if they're incumbents and they've been there for decades, and we don't like them, but they seem to keep getting reelected. Or it's people that end up on the ballot, and we look at them and you're like, how did this person get here? I don't really agree with them on anything. And then you kind of put it all together, and you come to realize that what drives this whole ship, what drives everything, is the money that they're getting. Yeah. So
you hit the nail on the head.
We'll get into that in a minute. But before we do that, let my audience know about yourself, your background. I know you're an entrepreneur and a businessman. So what, I'll give you the floor.
Well, as we discussed before the show, we're also from Pittsburgh. I'm a lifer here. I spent 10 years working in factory automation. Then I started a company called Bookminders. We were pioneers in really work from home accounting. We started that in 1991. And after 3 decades of that, the company had grown to a point where our CEO kind of retired me. She does a great job. And during the COVID, I was frustrated about what was going on in the country, about the partisanship. And I decided to form a political committee to come up with a fair way to determine representatives.
And prior to having this, sort of this passion ignited, did you have a lot of interest in politics? Were you active in either party or anything like that?
I came to age politically when Ronald Reagan came into office, and being an engineer and Star Wars, there's a lot of support behind that. At that time, very much resembled our time now. So originally, I was a Reagan Republican, but my first really paying attention, this was in 1992, when right at the time I was starting my company, I'd lost my job. And I was following the convention, and I was a big fan of Ross Perot. And I thought a lot of
Yeah.
the things that Ross Perot said about what was wrong with Congress really inspired me. And it just made me think that someday maybe an outsider or business person could figure out how to disrupt the system. I thought Ross made a lot of great points. It was something that sat in the back of my mind up until that point in the COVID where I said, I got to do something.
It's yeah, interesting you bring up Ross Perot. I love to tell this story every time I hear his name. When I was in elementary school, that was during that time with that election with Ross Perot and George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton. And, we had a school or a classroom vote, and I don't know how we even I think you just got to volunteer, and I think I volunteered as being the person who wanted to speak on behalf of Ross Perot, and, I remember, I watched the debates as they happened, I learned about him, and my dad helped me with my note cards, and,
Did you
that was
watch a
really
lot of Did you watch a lot of Dana Carvey too? That would help.
yeah, those were great SNL skits, yeah, back in the day, some of the best, George Bush impressions, fantastic, um, but yeah, and, Ross Perot I remember from the debates back then that you'll have Ross Perot in the middle and then Clinton and Bush right there, and, they'd ask each of them a question and Ross would talk, and they would both say, "Well, we agree with Ross," then they'll go off on their own thing. It's like, well, they're both agreeing with him, like, what's happening here? But anyway, yeah, Ross didn't win, but if we had more people like Ross Perot, I think in politics, that's something, I think we can all would all be happy with.
But
Before we
you can't fix Congress by running for president. The only way to fix Congress is to fix Congress.
Yeah, and
Okay.
nobody approves of Congress right now as it is. You look at the polling, it's like below 20% on the Democratic and Republican side for how they feel about their representatives. But before we start talking about, how the America's Main Street Party works, if you could just go a little bit more into your understanding and how you view the current problems with the way that our system is set up today.
Our votes aren't stolen on election day. They're stolen when legislation comes before Congress and super donors pressure our legislators to vote for that. And the people called party whips have tons of power. They control the list of people that basically buy Congress every 2 years. And so you wonder why we have this super big legislation. It's everybody making their deals, all the super donors, and they
Mhm.
pass this legislation that less than 1% of the people are involved in this. That is the problem. If people aren't really accountable on election day, then we lose control of the system. And they aren't accountable because every time they go up for a primary election, because they voted for them, they're getting, I don't know, a couple hundred, $2,700 checks, which gives them substantial advantage coming into the primary against any challenger. And the only way they get challenged is challenged from the further right or further left position because they'll get other super donors to back them. This is the problem with the system. It's like you said, it's about the money. If you can't address the money, you are not fixing the system. So we could have, you think about the election reform efforts of ranked choice voting, open primaries, um, that if you implement a ranked choice, so and overturning Citizens United, if you did all three of those things, our elections are still terribly unfair. You just have not addressed the issue of people from all over the country writing checks to your representative to guarantee that they're getting reelected. So the local people have very little say in who's actually going to Congress and whether they're actually going to do something for them.
Mhm. So when people hear about America's Main Street Party, I mean, the first things that comes to mind is, oh, another political party. This is a duopoly we have here. For many years, I was a libertarian. I was active in the Libertarian Party, and my experience, and I still have good friends who are very involved in the Libertarian Party. So I'm not trying to throw shade at them, but my experience was that it was a waste of time, and I kind of regret investing my time in it.
Yeah.
In hindsight, looking back, um, but
I agree with you. I think an alternate political party is the worst idea in the world. So why am I doing one?
yeah, yes.
Because it's not a political party. It is a tech company masquerading as a political party, frankly. And what we're doing is we're coming in and hijacking the system by following their rules. This is legal, what we're doing.
Mhm.
And we're basically using the system in a different way to take the power back. And nobody can prevent us from running this contest. The loophole is that if the potential nominees don't spend money, the one thing we hate about this system, a political party can do anything it wants to choose its nominee. So we can use the political committee to basically create an app that allow the people to choose that nominee.
But after that nominee is chosen, how do they get on the ballot?
Um, when you're not a party, it's actually really easy for the House, um, depending on the states. I could look up what it is for Pennsylvania, but it's sometimes it's like 2% of the general election turnout in the previous election. So the
Mhm.
House district has a couple, say 250,000 people show up for that. 2% of that is, I think 10,000. Or there are low numbers to
I'm
get.
not gonna make you do math live on the air, so yes.
But it's not a big hurdle to get them on. And our expectation is that we would market this in a way that um, we try to outdraw the public primary. Typical public primary gets about 100,000 participants. We would run this contest in parallel, market it, and try to outdraw it because we feel like if we can outdraw it, then our candidate comes in as a favorite because they actually survived a real contest. This person who won the Democratic or Republican primary was a shoo-in to begin with. They, in one round, no competition, ran a bunch of terrible ads. Ours is a contest that goes over 5 rounds where people can compare content and actually make constructive choices. And we'll hopefully talk about that more because this is not just a voting system. This is a way of it's like an Olympic competition for Congress.
Interesting. So
You know
yeah,
about
let's go through it. First, I guess before we go any further, just to maybe explain again, because I just want to make sure people grasp it. But this is fully legal. So how are we able to how are you able to do this separate from the the party sanctioned primaries and have your own primary?
This is really I think an interesting part of the story is that I started this with a political committee and I discovered that I was onto something. And actually, when I did this, I lost legal representation because the firm I was working with works with Republicans and Democrats, but not something like this. So I actually went out to the University of Pennsylvania and I got some pre-law students, guys who are in law school now, to actually
Mhm.
research this and validate the model and actually go into the Federal Election Commission code. And if you go, we have another website called wilsonsfountain.us. It's really kind of a sandbox. It's named after James Wilson, who's a constitutional author. But these guys digged into the election code, and what we're doing is we looked at the 4 different types of committees that exist. There's a political party committee, which is what we're doing, the tech company. There are local committees that can do, basically help they're going to help with our contest. There's super PACs and there are candidate committees. Right now in our system, the candidate committees have tons of power and all the other committees don't, and the super PACs. And our committee system, the local committees are going to have the power. And what we're going to do, the super PAC, instead of backing a candidate, it's going to back the winner of the contest. So if you think about it, if a super PAC comes in and says, we're going to back the people, there's no strings attached to that money. The
Mhm.
people of the power. So our goal is to get this going to the point where we can attract that super PAC money and basically put the prize money up so we get good candidates coming in because they know if they win the contest that there'll be money back there to help them bring down the incumbent Republican or Democrat. But yes, this is all legal. I work with law students. We ultimately did find a
Mhm.
law firm. The loophole, as long as we set up a system where people don't have to send money to run, and we'll talk about the contest, then the system is legal.
So the super PAC aspect of it, that's interesting too. So people putting up money for that, they might be enticed to do it because they want to get rid of a current incumbent. Is that, or I mean,
I
what would entice people to give money into the super PAC?
I to me, to go down in history. I want to find,
To change the
wealthy people,
system.
to people who more or less say that, hey, I'm going to capitalize a more perfect union, that they get that this is going to transform the system in a way that they'll be remembered for. And I think that when they see the potentially history setting capability of this, that we'll find that there are people that are in the middle that hate the system just as much as the people on the left and the right who put tons of money up for politics. Right now, these people sit on the sidelines because they don't want to put their weight on either side. I think if they saw a way that they actually restore the voice of the people, this is a truly unique way of using a super PAC. And one of the biggest things, John, that I had problems with is that I couldn't wrap my head around using super PAC. And it wasn't until um, I realized that there's these things called the Senate Democratic Reelection Fund, and I don't know if you ever heard these terms, that the parties have these reelection funds. That
Hmm.
my attorney was there, like, well, how are you going to pay for the contest winner? And I said, I'm going to use one of these reelection funds. He goes, Tom, he goes, they're not funds. I go, what do you mean? He goes, it's a list of people that write the checks to get, but it doesn't sound so eloquent on CNN to say this is the congressional people list of people by Congress every year. They just call it a reelection fund, but it's not a fund. So when I did this, it's like, oh my God, I can't do what I was going to do. And then frankly, I went home and I had a lot of drinks. And I wrapped my head around using a super PAC to do the same thing. And I said, oh my gosh, I came up with a really unique idea: use a super PAC for the common good. And the idea that I could find a Ross Perot, that was really what I was there like, hey, if Ross Perot were alive today and I went to him with this idea, he'd back it. And because he knew the problem with Congress. And I think as long as I market this and find, my Ross Perot or Ross Perots, that we'll have that funding. And to win House seats is not expensive, especially if you go into uncompetitive where they're not used to competing. We're not going to swing districts. We're going to gerrymandered districts where the people are not used to competing. We'll go into navy blue district, try to nominate a baby blue, and ruby reds, and try to get a pink candidate and put those up against those incumbents in the general election. And in districts where the opposition party doesn't have enough voters to really have a chance to win. So we're looking at numbers where the winner in the previous election had at least 2/3 of the vote, but not more than 80%. So there's
Okay.
enough opposition votes that they're going to say, hey, if we participate in this process, we'll get somebody that at least has some of our ideological leanings. They're not going to be, way off the rails. And it's a market force. It creates balance. It puts competition where there isn't any.
Right, and I think I might know somebody who could help with the super PAC stuff. You might have heard of him. He's getting more involved in politics slowly here. Elon Musk, he might be interested in helping out. But
Well, you know what? I wonder. I mean, I wonder if like this really they can't control the candidates, and I
Mhm.
wonder. I think I don't know if he's that special. Frankly, this really takes a really selfless person that would say that, hey, this is really about giving all these people a voice, and that I have no power over who they pick.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of people. I mean, no matter which, I shouldn't say this because it's probably not true, but I would like to think that people would people look at our broken system and those gerrymandered districts that you're talking about, where essentially they've just been created that way in order to protect candidates, so you can or elected officials, you can have the same elected official for decades and decades, and they can accrue power in Congress. But I'd like to think people want to disrupt that, and
Yeah,
especially with what's happened recently with the Epstein files being released and people seeing all of the just crazy things that are coming out of that. So I think something like that could help your cause, and just
yeah,
especially young people, people in Gen Z, millennials, just ready to disrupt things
yeah.
and
I thought
just
the guy you were going to suggest was going to be another guy from the 412, Mark Cuban.
Cuban. He could be. He
Yeah, I
could
mean,
be
I would think
interesting.
it'd be, I don't know if it's him, but I think it's somebody like that who's not really seen. affiliated with either side. I mean, I think it's important whoever we align with is really not on either side, seen as part of either side. And
Yeah.
maybe somebody who's just an unknown person who all of a sudden steps up and says, you know what, this resonates with me. Um, it could be some more of that. There's a lot of folks that have money that are on the sidelines who see this as a big problem.
Yeah. Ideally, you have some anonymous, very wealthy people who just want to disrupt the system step forward, probably. But let's talk about this contest and explain how it plays out, kind of step by step.
Well, first off, assuming the super PAC comes together, they're going to pick the districts, and we'd always do an equal number of blue and red. And so say it's 10 of each, that we would market into those districts in advance and educate the public through public service announcements about what's coming. Download the app, learn how to use it. If you want to be a contestant, here's how to do it. If you want to be on the nominating committee or the local committee, here's what you do, looking for volunteers. But the idea is that for folks that are interested in running, that they would have access to a campaign portal where they can put in their positions. They can have public service now visit about their biographical information. But the whole idea is that whether it's characters, pixels, or length of video, that they get an equal number of space that the other contestants have, that it's an equal platform for people to compete, and that the public comes in there to get the content. The one thing that's, I think, unique, and this is one of the things that our intern from Haverford came up with, Chauncey Wadsworth, this guy has contributed greatly to our effort. The idea that we'll have this issue indicator, and that all the candidates coming in will have to take positions on 7 key issues that we think will be coming for Congress in the next session. 2
Mhm.
global, 3 national, 2 local. And the idea is that the constituents then can match up on that. Because if this is a free contest to enter, you're going to get a lot of contestants. So how do you whittle the field from a large field, potentially 75, 100 or more candidates, down to, we want to first go to a top 20. So our thought is, if we have the issue indicator, the important thing is to make sure you align on these things that are coming before Congress. So instead of being a 1 issue voter, we hope people will be 3, 4, potentially 7 issue voters. But if you put in 7, go through the math, I mean, it reduces the field a lot. But let's say it's 4 and you match with 25 of these potential candidates. You could go through their profiles, or you could say, you know what, I just want to endorse them all for the top
Hmm.
20. And that's called approval voting. That's actually one of the best voting methods out there, is to basically vote for everybody you approve of, not just one person. This is actually what helped break down a party system. Um, but
And what
and what
if I could just chime in there, what's interesting about that, is especially picking 7, or even 4, whatever it is, a lot of people probably don't realize where they stand politically, because they get so locked into, 1 or 2 issues, and then you open it up and you just have them fill out, fill it out in the app on these different 7 issues. They might be surprised, some of the people
I mean,
that
we've
come
been
up.
using this for dating for decades. Why aren't we using this to pick a candidate? So the idea is, at this top level, you can toggle. You say, hey, you got a match on these issues. Some, you wouldn't, but basically it's going to bring back a field. You can endorse them all. You get to a top 20. You could decide at this point now, but you may say, you know what, I still 6, 7 people in. I'll just endorse those through to the top 10. At some point, we get to a top 4. And here we want to actually take a little bit more time with the contest, and we're calling this our virtual town hall round. And at this point, what we want to do is gather questions from the nominating committee, gather questions from different aspects of the district. Imagine the gerrymandered district, so there are going to be opposition questions that need to be surfaced, and that the 4 remaining candidates would have potential to weigh in on, again, through video messages, and that the constituents have about a week to check those out. And what we're proposing or thinking we'd do at this point, we would use ranked choice voting on the top 4. And what's nice about ranked choice voting in the top 4, if you require everybody to rank all 4, is that you would eliminate the 4th, re-rank their votes, and you're just getting to a top 2. We're going to do a final debate round. So I don't think
Hmm.
there's really anything wrong with it. But one of the things we're doing, since we're running this like a business, we really want the consumers, the users, to pick the best method. So there's approval voting, there's star voting, there's ranked choice voting, there's pick 2. So there's going to be different things that when we beta this application, we're going to try these out. And instead of academics choosing what is best, we're going to actually let the customer pick what's best. But once we get to a top two, we'll go to a final debate round. And at that point, the two finalists will debate each other. And we want to obviously figure out a better way to do a debate than they're doing it now. But I think people should have an up and down comparison of the final two candidates weigh in for one last vote. 5 rounds of voting.
So how do you keep the current incumbent candidate from participating and
They can
trying to?
participate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd have to get rid of their committee. One of the rules to participate in the contest, you cannot have a political committee. We didn't talk about this, so
Hmm.
let's play it through to the end. One of the conditions of the thing to get the super PAC money, you have to agree that somebody on the local committee will be treasurer of your candidate committee and that they'll empty the account at the end of the general election. No war chests in this party. Candidate committees only last for one general election cycle, then they're shut down. Does two things. One, the candidates, the people who get elected, let's assume this person wins, they don't have to spend any time that 2 years raising money from donors because they're not allowed to do it. So they work for the constituents 24/7. They're not wasting time courting donors from people probably
Hmm.
not even in their district. Then they re-enter the contest the next time without a committee to win. So in our system, candidate committees have no power.
Okay. So you're referencing the party rules or whatever they are, the party statutes. Who wrote all of that? And who, I guess I'm
Me
just
and the
thinking.
college students, frankly. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, hey, let's design. There's actually one of the research fight design the perfect nominating system. Now that the constraints are off and we don't have to get approval from anybody, let's just design it. And over time, we'll probably hopefully make it better. We've only had input from a handful of people or so. We get good ideas every day and we'll incorporate them. We don't have to change the law to implement a feature.
Mhm. So how do you protect against, you know, corruption of what you're building? Years from now, I'm assuming you're chairman or whatever of the party as it is today. That's not going to last forever. So how would you protect against corruption coming in and nefarious actors taking over this mechanism?
Well, the next step, I mean, this is party is still pretty much, I don't want to say infancy. I think we're toddling or riding a bike for the first time. But yeah, we need a board. We need to put the things in place that other nonprofit organizations do so that they can have checks and balances and subcommittees and do those types of things. Right now, we don't have enough going on to attract the type of people that do that. But I assume that once we have some clout, we'll be able to bring the folks in that would give governance to this. Part of what we're doing, though, is by design, is separating the powers. So
Mhm.
the party is its own committee. The local committees are their own committees. The super PAC is its own entity. They have to all be independent of each other. And those in itself kind of put the checks and balances in place. So one thing that could happen, one way to corrupt the system would be to go too far left or right by the super PAC. How do you control that? Actually, we do because we license it. We're only going to put out an equal number red and blue contest. So we're a check and balance on the super PAC.
Mhm.
The super PAC has a check and balance as well that they can't necessarily be held to put the money up if the constituents don't do their job. So one of the check and balances could be that the super PAC comes in and say, hey, we'll fund your district, but you got to get at least 50,000 people in this contest. We're not going to put millions of dollars and you guys have some lame effort
Yeah.
in picking your nominee. And, our check and balance on the committees is that we validate the contest. So if they're not following the rules that we set up, we could invalidate the contest. Now they don't get super PAC funding for that either. So there's these things that are, parties are acting in a way that they control each other and do what the the separations of powers we're supposed to do. We're going to put those things in place, and you do that by having rules say that, hey, somebody on this board can't be on that board,
Mhm.
in this board can't be on this board, and those rules of governance have to be put in place. I helped launch a charter school system in Western Pennsylvania. I've had a lot of experience working with nonprofit organizations. Um, I do have that background. It's not. I wish the organization were had the money behind it, where we could track the people to put those boards and those things in place. But yes, those are the things that need to be done.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm not criticizing. I'm risk manager by trade. That's what I'm I'm trained in. Is just trying to figure out like worst case scenario. How is this thing turned into a you know a uh, a Death Star or something like that?
Well,
But
my business is running accounting systems for other companies and nonprofits. So you can imagine the amount of risk and controls and things that I'm concerned about, people
yeah.
taking money from clients, taking money, employees. And, we have a 35-year track record, knock on wood. Like, we put the controls in place and protected the information of our clients. And I think, those types of challenges that we'll be presented with, I actually have the experience with, and kind of
Mhm.
uniquely positioned actually to take, I think, this venture on. I mean, right now, my company, Bookminders, counts money, and this organization will count those.
Yeah. So take us through how this rolls out. I mean, it sounds like you're expecting this to first be utilized in this midterm election cycle. Is that right or no?
If a miracle happens,
Okay.
I don't. I mean, I think our goals for this election cycle is to draw a contrast between how we're going to do it and the way it plays out today. And our expectation is that within the next few weeks or month, that we'll have a beta version of this application available that people can see how it works. And when I say see how it works, is that instead of running this in a real election, we're going to run a fake election every week, and we're going to run through the cycle like every day. One day will be one round of elimination, and then the next
Mhm.
will be, and so that users throughout the week could just download the app, join the contest, see how it plays, play it again the next week. And we're going to do it for both the left and right district, and we want people to get a feel for this. So um, that's really our goal, is to get that. And if we got a super donor, quickly, or somebody who do the super PAC, yeah, we could take a shot. There's still a lot of time to get folks on the ballot. Some of the last primaries are in June, July, and August. Still a lot of opportunities to get into, 5 and 5 or 10 and 10. We wouldn't try it out with one. We'd have to always do an equal number.
Yeah. No,
Um,
that makes sense.
but to me, it's more important that you launch this like a business, and a business never puts a product out before it's ready. So
Mhm.
we're just going to worry about getting to the next step of the plan. The next step of the plan is to get an application in the hands of the public, that they can get a feel for what's going on and learn about. And at that point, donate and support it. And hopefully through that process, if we get a lot of downloads and a lot of public support, then the super PAC donor will come along and say, yeah, if the people behind this, I'll be behind it.
Maybe it's too early in the process to ask this question, but I'm curious what kind of well, you did actually talk a little earlier, I think, about a lawyer refusing to work with you because of what you were doing. But I know from my experience in the Libertarian Party that when we were going for signatures to get on a ballot, the Republicans and Democrats would do everything they could to disrupt us, and even trying to get into debates. I managed a Senate campaign for the Libertarian U.S. Senate candidate back in 2018, and talking to the network news companies, and they basically told me, "You're not getting into the debate because you don't advertise. You don't
Yeah.
advertise our networks. You're not getting in the debate." So just kind of looking at these different aspects of, there's a lot of moneyed interests. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about money controlling politics that don't want this to happen. So have you thought about how to insulate yourself from that and protect yourself from that perspective?
Well, there's the one aspect of this that it can't be stopped. We're operating within their system. We're using their system against them, basically. So they'd have to change their system to force us to change the system. So it's kind of the way monopolies go down, is that when you figure out a loophole, you kind of use the system against them. But to
Mhm.
your point, to like the way after we got conflicted out of our law firm, and to find an election law firm that would work with us was almost impossible. I mean, we finally found somebody who had expertise in election law, but it was really more about um, advocating for different issues for politics, who finally agreed to work with us. And for his like Ivy League educated, a really good law firm, but
Mhm.
we were rejected by firm after firm, just wouldn't even consider working with us. 2 years to find a law firm. And then in the media, I spent a fair amount of money with a publicist to try to market the idea. And this is all about the debates about the gerrymandering that's going on. And this is a gerrymander buster, and nobody in the mainstream media really wanted to write about this. And this is a legitimate story. If somebody says you found a legal, practical, and fair way to deliver election reform that counteracts gerrymandering, you're telling me there isn't somebody around this country that wouldn't write an article about this? And I spent 3 months pitching this to all the major news outlets through a
Mhm.
PR firm, and nobody picked up the story.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but it's just it's a crazy climate that we're in, and the groupthink, the echo chambers, especially in the media, that the people operate in their different silos. It's like they can't even hear anything um, outside of it. But
Correct.
let's yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that to me, the channel is this. It's is coming to the
Yeah.
people directly through people who are talking through podcasts, through the smaller media, through the independent news channels. And really, I only need to connect with one, wealthy donor, one person of influence, because that person can help us get to other people of influence. So that's the goal. Said, get the app out, find a find a backer.
I'll make sure to send a clip of this to Mark Cuban. We went to the same high school, so maybe that'll help.
Oh, Mount Lebanon.
Yeah.
We
Um,
graduated, I think no, I think he's 2 years older, but, he's definitely a contemporary and know a lot of the same people. I've reached out to him, but, and he definitely, thinks that a big problem is the public primary.
yeah. No, I think you would like this. So let's kind of we've been talking about some of the hurdles and obstacles, things like that, overcoming. Let's kind of look forward. 10 years from now, 15, 16 years from now. You're talking about starting this out in 5, 7, 9, or what I guess would be even numbers. So
Yeah.
so 6, 8, 10 house districts, whatever. How big do you see this getting? Do you see it expanding into Senate races, expanding eventually one day into the presidency?
Absolutely. In fact, if you go the last FAQ on our website is could this, the goal is to get saturation, to always expand the footprint. I always expect that actually, if we implement this in 28 by 2030, we would be going after Senate seats,
Hmm.
starting with smaller states because we can make a bigger impact in smaller states. And what's interesting about this concept, you think about the Constitution, one of the big controversy that Madison and Wilson were disappointed that the Senate wasn't proportional. And there's a huge, huge disagreement, almost derailed the whole thing about whether the Senate would be proportional. And as it turned out, the Senate not being proportional is kind of not great, as we see. But if you're going to disrupt the system, having the ability to actually target small states makes it easy,
Yeah.
easier. And so that is kind of our strategy if we go to the Senate, is to target smaller states because you could have just as much power. Why go to a big state where you commit all these districts, and you could go after the House districts as well? And that within some period of time, once you get in, is to have a national nominating process for president that isn't this crazy state system where everybody weighs in, over multiple rounds to whittle the field down to a top nominee, and that we have actually some process for doing. The, as bad as the nominating process is for the House, the president is absolutely archaic.
Hmm. No, absolutely. So, one more question, maybe two, but one just popped to my mind. Thinking about that voting process you're talking about going through. Um, have you got to the point where you started thinking about encryption, protecting this the system, how that's going to be constructed?
Yeah, and fortunately, other people thought a lot about this. And actually, a Carnegie Mellon guy came out with an app called Votes, which was used. It has been used for I think 8 years by the military for service members who are on submarines or in war zones or places where they can't get their ballot out. And some states now have even adopted this for people who live in remote locations or aren't mobile to use this application called Votes, where they can securely vote. And it uses blockchain technology. Face identification is probably one of the most secure technologies available. The firm that we're it's not firm, it's a nonprofit organization that's helping us with our beta of this application, Digital Democracy Project, works with Votes. So, Digital Democracy Project is already gathering input from voters in Florida on legislation and giving that information to state legislators. And the state legislators, they want to know that these are actual real people who've been verified. So, the Digital Democracy Project uses Votes to do that verification, and they're rolling this out to 6 more states. So, and that's just one of the methods. There's also, if you SIV.org. It stands for Secure Internet Voting. It's a nonprofit. They're doing public domain. Their technology is being used worldwide. There's a guy named Brad Tusk. He's doing mobile voting. They've did a trial in Utah. He's doing stuff in Alaska. So mobile voting, secure mobile voting is here, and it's not only here. I mean, there's competitors.
Hmm. This is exciting stuff. Honestly, coming into this, I wasn't sure. I really didn't understand it fully, but sitting down talking with you today, I can envision it. I can see the vision. So I'm definitely, I think, a supporter at this point. But other
The
people
biggest
here,
thing, no legal roadblocks.
that's important. Yeah, because
It's not
that,
just
that's
important.
that's
It
that's
is
how
the
that's how
game.
they stop you. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. That's and they're gonna and they'll the Republicans, Democrat lawyers will look at every way possible to stop you. But other people hearing this out there today, if they want to get involved, want to help, just want to just want to share about it, where can they learn more?
Certainly go to mainstreetparty.org, like us on our social media contacts. We'd love to get donations, but I think even more important is spreading the word, sharing the idea. This is a paradigm shift, so people have to talk about it, wrap their heads around it. Another website, a separate organization called Wilson's Fountain. Go to wilsonsfountain.us. This is a education website. I put it together so that we could do the legal research, but a lot of the things behind James Wilson's free and equal election clause, if a college student look at the economic impact, how this is impact the structure of Congress, but it's really kind of a way to understand the idea more globally, because that's where we describe how these different political committees are used together to create what we call Wilson's Fountain, which is making the election system pure again. The America's Main Street Party is the first component of Wilson's Fountain. It's the pump.
Okay. All right. Well, I will link to all of that on the show notes page. Tom Joseph, thank you so much for coming on the show. And yeah, we'll have to have you back down the road, and maybe we'll do it in person next time.
Yeah, you want to have coffee. That'd be great.
All righty. Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, that is a wrap today for my interview with Tom Joseph, and I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. I had a lot of questions going in, and you know, a lot of them were cleared up, and my eyes have kind of been opened here to maybe a new path, a new avenue that we can fight back against political corruption and money in politics, and a lot of this just hopelessness that is out there with our current system, where we just kind of throw our hands up in the air and say, well, this is how it is. We'll just do the best we can with this broken machinery that we're forced to operate with. So hopefully this can help to change that. Like I said, I'll link to everything on the show notes page. Check it out. If you like this show, if you like what we're doing here at Lions of Liberty, please do support us by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening to this. Be sure to follow all of our social, of course, as well. And if you really like us and you want to get more bonus content, you can find us on Patreon or on Locals and become a supporter there. We'll appreciate it. With that being said, I will see you all next week with another great interview. In the meantime, always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.